Wendy's back with us in studio today, and as I mentioned, our main topic is going to be looking at the auction industry following a series of complaints around tardy payment practices in particular. But first, we're going to answer a listener query that came in on Monday after I mentioned the sudden rise in scam emails trying to use a QR code as the bait. As I said, we might have time for an open line question or two as well at the end. So you're welcome to send those through or share your own experience or ask a question on 072 567 1567. Always good to have you with us, Wendy. Welcome. Now, during Monday's show, I received yet another email from a known contact, somebody who is on my mailing list as an approved sender, telling me there's an urgent document attached which can be opened by QR code. And it must be probably a fifth, sixth, seventh such mail I've now received. And in every one of the other cases, and in this most recent one, a couple of hours later, I've got an email in from the actual sender, the person who is my verified contact, saying, sorry, my email has been hacked. Please don't open any emails that come through from me, especially not with a QR code. And I mentioned this on Monday. I wondered whether listeners had experienced the same thing. And gosh, we got a flurry of messages saying, yes, me too. Lots of them mentioning doctors' practices and accountants' practices. So I don't know if they're targeting hacking email systems of professional practices. But long story short, it's happening. This is a new variation of trying to source your information from you. And what one of our listeners asked, Wendy, was where is the risk point? And can you tell us how the scam actually works? So we sent that voice note through to Wendy and asked her just to do a little bit of digging for us. And in fact, you're going to start by teaching us a new word, Wendy.
Yes. First of all, I haven't got any of these. I'm feeling quite left out.
Oh. I can forward you a couple if you've got real FOMO.
Nor has anyone queried them with me, which is really odd because I do so much work with scams.
Yeah.
So it's quishing.
Quishing.
So it's the QR code, like we have vishing for the voice, the phone calls you get from the person pretending to be from the fraud division of your bank or the credit card division of your bank. And so the QR code, so it's quishing. That's what the cybersecurity experts call it. And how it works is that if you scan that code, it will direct you to a fraudulent phishing website, which is engineered to steal your login credentials, credit card details, and personal data. And they are exploiting the fact that while most of us know not to click on links because we've had this coming at us as advice for years now, we're very accustomed now to scanning QR codes. We feel safe doing it. And so we're... The danger is that you don't suspect anything because you're not clicking on a link, so it's all good, and so that is a vulnerability that's now being exploited. The banks, SARS in particular, some of the cell phone networks have been doing a lot to warn people about quishing. I don't know that they're using that word, and they probably should, so people know in a word exactly what they're talking about with these QR codes. But yeah, SARS has warned taxpayers about a prominent tax review email scam. They send a malicious QR code embedded inside, instructing victims to scan it to process a tax review. Of course, you're going to go,
of course you want to do,
yeah, maybe help me pay for my petrol this month kind of thing. And so the SARS has obviously warned that they never send hyperlinks or QR codes to taxpayers via email or SMS. Standard Bank as well has issued high priority security warnings not to respond to these WhatsApp containing a QR code to secure some kind of luck from or to secure their accounts because they've been told it's compromised. So it's just a variation.
It's the typical. It's just a new variation.
A technological variation, on it. And African Bank as well. Vodacom has run a think twice before you scan campaign.
Interesting.
Warning its massive user base that quishing is a thing. It's expanding rapidly as your experience.
Okay. So in terms of what to do and what not to do, I mean, Wendy, obviously the first thing is if you get one of these, don't open. Don't scan the QR code. Be very suspicious of any document that comes in asking you to use a QR code to open it, and don't click until. And if you think there is a possibility that this might be genuine, then phone the service provider it claims to be coming from, or go to their
simple
genuine website.
What they do is create urgency, which all scammers do, and that's another red flag. Scan this if or your banking app will be
compromised
closed or compromised or something. So if you get that little urgent feeling on seeing something, that must be a red flag. It mustn't compel you to act fast. It must compel you to think, hold on, my genuine bank or won't operate like this.
I'm going to just repeat again that wonderful quote somebody gave to us last year. If it has to be now, it has to be no.
Yes, that's a good one. Hey?
Yeah. If they are
must use
pressuring
that.
you to act immediately, it's genuine.
Just let that no come immediately
Yeah.
to you. This one, I've in researching this, I think is a good piece of advice. Disable the setting on your smartphone camera that automatically opens web pages when a QR code is detected.
So your phone might do it for you without your intending
Yeah, so I've actually
to
done
open
that
it.
myself.
Okay.
So what you do must be mindful and deliberate. We don't want
Okay.
anything auto
Automatic.
happening with a QR code anymore. If a code must be scanned, preview the destination link on the phone camera to ensure that the domain is correct and it's spelled properly and secure. Because, it'll come up, and then check that before you...
And check for spelling
do
mistakes and
yes.
things like that. Okay.
Unfortunately, the scammers are using AI to their benefit, and so you're not that old warning about the grammar and everything will be off isn't happening anymore because they're using AI to be more perfect.
Although I think you can still tell when it's
You
been
and
written by AI.
You
but
and I will, but
be mindful.
But
Okay.
because we work in the space, but a lot of people wouldn't. And again, if it claims to be from your bank or a delivery company, they piggyback on all of us doing, so many of us doing online shopping, is just navigate to the official website rather than interacting with that email just to make sure what's going on and check the addresses. So it must be absa.co.za, not absa-security-update.net.
Yeah, that's a sure sign.
Yeah,
okay.
sure sign.
Okay. Now, Wendy, what somebody asked me on Monday, and I realized I didn't really know the answer to, was what if you scanned the code? Okay, so you've made the mistake. Either your phone's opened it for you or you genuinely thought for a second this might be a real thing and you scanned that code. You didn't actually put your data in, so it opened up and asked you to give it your ID number and your logins and things, and you immediately went, okay, hold on, not going to do that. But you have opened the page. Are
you be
you
worried?
at risk? And is it good enough to just delete the mail and do nothing? Or are you at risk?
There is a bit of a problem here because by opening, you've proved to them that your email address and phone number is active, which might mean that you're going to get a lot more of them.
Yeah.
But it's also possible then for them to have logged your IP address, which gives them info on your general location. And there is the possibility that more sophisticated scammers could have used that moment of connection to target you with malware. But I would say realistically that is quite a low risk at the moment. So don't panic. And if something hasn't happened yet, it's probably not going to happen.
But there's a simple solution to that, which is do a malware scan on your device. If you've got whatever antivirus.
Which we all should, Kapinski or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So if you did accidentally open it, even if you didn't provide info, the best advice is to immediately disconnect from the internet, run a malware scan with your own security program and antivirus software to clear your browser's cache and
Cookies. Yeah.
I was like, what is the cooking? To ensure no lingering tracking scripts remain, and then be extra vigilant with your incoming messages as the scammers know that you clicked on their link and they now think they've got we've got a live one here, and let's hit them some more.
Okay, so be super vigilant afterwards. But just take those couple of steps to check, just to reassure yourself that there is nothing that's slipped in through the door you accidentally opened, and then close the door firmly behind you.
Now we've terrified half our listenership. Because it is so, technology makes things easy for us and very much easier for them.
The scammers as well. Yeah. Okay. There's a scam in just about every interview I do. It was the honey earlier today and the honey fraudsters.
Adulteration.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's just the overall advice for me, I think, is just take it slow.
Okay.
Be mindful. Don't assume anything. And I think if we've done our jobs, we've put some... cloak the QR code in a little bit of be carefulness. Yeah. And then, So
don't assume that all QR codes are innocent and innocuous.
No, they are being abused, unfortunately, by the scammers.
Okay, thanks for that. And thanks for doing that quick follow-up research for us, Wendy. Right, well, with that, we're going to move on to our main story of the day, which is taking us back into the world of auction houses. And I'm sure there are plenty of listeners who may recall our show back in October 2024, when we shared the story of several people who had entrusted prized family possessions to Stefan Waltz and co. for auctioning and then didn't get get paid the money that was due to them, or in some cases were only partially paid, and then months and months went by with promises made that the rest would be settled, and it just didn't happen. Now, in the end, we were able to help all of those complainants, and their accounts were fully settled, Wendy.
The company always says we never don't pay people, but they feel entitled or through circumstance or whatever to
delay outside
for
the
months
parameters.
and months and months, which is totally unethical, of course, and illegal.
And that's why we're going back to this today, because you've had some new cases crop up.
Right. So last month I took up another case of Stefan Weltz's with the group manager Lawrence Friedman, when Paul's family sold the Western Cape farm, which had been in the family for a very long time. Much of the furniture, beautiful armoires and amazing things, wouldn't fit into their new smaller home. And so they entrusted 32 items to Stefan Weltz and company for sale, and they were collected in early July last year. By mid-September, all the pieces had been sold on auction, with 778,000 Rand being due to Paul after commission within 45 days, according to the contract. Now, 45 days is it's a very long time, given the norm.
Okay, so that's long. So,
anyway.
So 45 days from early July, by my calculation, takes you into sort of late August or so for that deadline. Late August came and went, and Paul hadn't seen his money yet,
No,
Wendy.
by the time he came to me in March, there had been random amounts paid. And with no explanation, no
correlation between
no
items,
statement saying this is, and now we still owe you this. Just random amounts plopped into his account. But by the time he came to me in March, as I said, he had some payments, but he was still owed a considerable 265,000 Rand by the auction house. And the reason he came to me was that his emails
we're being
saying,
ignored.
What's happening? Where's the money? We're just being ignored, exactly. So, I took up his case with Lawrence Friedman of Stefan Weltz, and he was paid virtually immediately, which he does, which is great. But,
it shouldn't take that
as
kind
we
of
always
intervention.
Say, it shouldn't need my help.
And what interested me is what Friedman told you about how often that happens, Wendy, the percentage of sellers who are paid out within the 45-day terms that are contained in the contract.
75, which is 3/4 and most, but that's 25% who are being made to wait much longer than 45 days.
That was my immediate thought, So if 25% are not being paid, you're breaching your contract with a quarter of your customers.
And
that's not a metric I would find acceptable.
And as I say, 45 days is already a long time in terms of the industry norms.
Okay, so that was the Stefan Weltz case. And again, Paul has now been paid in full. And thank you for your intervention, Wendy and Paul. I'm glad that we were able to help. It's not only Stefan Weltz, though, that this happens with, Wendy. They're not the only auctioneer which appears to not stick to the payment terms terribly well.
Yes, exactly. It appears that Elf Duncan Auctioneers, based in the Strand, has been withholding payment from many of its clients, particularly since the beginning of the year. I've spoken to two of their clients in recent weeks, both of whom complained that the company did not pay them within the promised 14 days. They've got
14 days? Okay.
That's much more sort of reasonable, but only if they keep their promise.
Yeah.
So Shanae, I'll leave out these terms. I don't think we need them. Shanae arranged for Elf Duncan Auctioneers to collect her goods in mid-November last year. She was told that she'd be paid within 3 weeks. It's a bit more than 14 days, but still acceptable. The first auction was on the 25th of November, at which most of her items were sold and the rest in a smaller amount in successive ones. And she was owed at least 20,500. She wasn't sure of the exact amount. She hadn't been told, but that was minimum, she said. I'm at the end of my rope, she told me last month. It was a lot of my parents' furniture, and I feel really deflated.
Shame.
Deflated she was, but defeated she was not. So she sent the auctioneers a letter of demand, giving them 4 days to pay. This was before I spoke to her. Failing which, she'd report them to the SA Institute of Auctioneers and CapeTalk.
And here we are.
I saw my name in a few of her emails. 4 days later, 20,500 Rand appeared in her account. She said, I'm not even sure if this is all that I was owed, but I'm just happy to see the bulk of my money. But
okay, so that was Shanae's experience. Now, we
Yes.
have a second complainant in this case who is standing by to talk to us, and I've got one eye on the clock. It tells me we're 1 minute away from the news. So we're just going to set the scene here, and then after the news, we'll come straight back to Mary to share her experience with us. But in the meantime, I want to just say to anybody else listening, if you are listening to this going, I can't believe it, this happened to me too, or if you're listening to this going, well, gosh, that wasn't my experience at all with that company, please, either way, send us a WhatsApp on 072 567 1567 and share your experience with us. Or if you've got a question for Wendy on practice in this industry based on what you've already heard, you're very welcome to ask that as well by sending that WhatsApp. You are welcome to do so anonymously if you want to. You can also send an email through to pippah@capetalk.co.za. And then after the Eyewitness News, we'll hear Mary's particular story, which is also involving Alf Dunction auctioneers from the Strand. And then we're going to speak to the industry body, which represents a number of auctioneers that are going to talk to us a little bit about things like payment terms and how to check that the person and the auction house you are choosing is a reputable one, etc. So if you have questions, if maybe you are sitting about to go out to tender, as it were, looking for an auctioneer to handle the deceased estate contents or something like that, and already a WhatsApp in from Karen, who also used Alf Dunction auctioneers. She said they sold my mother's furniture in November and December of 2025. Also, and that was what they had, a 14-day term. She said we were only paid in March this year after many mails and calls. Okay, so that's thank you for that. Okay, sorry, sold in November, December 2024, she says. So it's even, it was bad enough when it was last year, but 2 years back. That's appalling. Karen, thank you for that. Okay, so let's go back and bring in Mary, who is listening to us and has been waiting patiently to speak to us, and then we'll go to the industry organisation. Mary of Viljoenstort also contacted us recently, and Wendy, tell us briefly, this was also an Alf Duncan case.
Yes, she she entrusted the auction house with her household goods, and they were auctioned off in a couple of auctions between mid-January and mid-February of this year. She was owed 24,500 Rand, and until this week she hadn't seen a cent of it.
Sure. Okay. So Mary's been listening, and Mary, thank you for your patience waiting to chat to us, and thank you for joining us on the show this afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you.
What did you what did Alf Duncan auctioneers say to you about the payment terms when you entrusted your goods to them? What did they tell you should expect?
Yeah, they made it clear that it would be the 14 working days, and I was happy with that. That made sense for them to get payment in after the auction had taken place. And when I did eventually follow up later, after we'd moved house, and so it took a little bit of time, I followed up with them towards the end of February. They came back and gave me details with remittances based on the different auctions that had taken place, again confirming that it should be plus or minus 14 days, working days after the day of auction, which would have brought me to March.
Sort of maybe the third week if you take out the weekends.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when that didn't happen clearly, and share with us some of the justifications and excuses that you were given when you queried why you hadn't been paid.
Well, I got one excuse was basically, the lady that deals with it is off sick, and when she comes back tomorrow, and then when I tried to phone back again, the person that I needed to talk to, because there was going to be an auction the next day, they were in the warehouse and they didn't phone me back, and the lady that does payments just never seemed to be there. It just went on and on and on, and I would follow up by phone and not get response, and then I'd follow up by email as well. And then I also tried to threaten legal action. Nothing happened with that either. So it just was a total runaround.
Okay, but things took a bit of a turn this week for the better. Won't you explain what happened?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes, because I had contacted you, as did Sine. We've said we'll contact because I know that you've helped in the past with other things. And I sent you the details. And then out of the blue, yesterday, I got payment in May for things that had been sold in January and February, which was wonderful. Thank you. So I got paid what I should have got paid. But, what worries me is it shouldn't have to be that you have to be so persistent and to follow up and follow up. And what also concerns me is if there are people that aren't as persistent as me, and they sit without payment for months and months and months, and this is ridiculous,
And
absolutely ridiculous.
Probably budgeted on the money to expend on a certain
Exactly. You need it for something. There's a reason why you're selling, and the money just fails to come through, and it's just totally, as you said before, it's totally unethical. It shouldn't be happening. It's bad business practice, and it leaves such a bad taste in the mouth.
Yeah. Mary, thank you so much. I mean, I'm so sorry that you had such a struggle through it, but I'm relieved to hear that the money is finally in your account. And Wendy, well done you for getting that outcome for both of our complainants this week. So that's 3 examples now, because we had Mary and Sine as well as Karen on the WhatsApp line, who had items sold in November, December 2024 and only saw her money March 2026. Persistence, continual chasing, etc.
Exhausting, though.
Let's take a step. First let's share the response from this particular auctioneer, and then we'll take a step back and look at sort of an industry perspective on whether this is the norm and something you've just got to live with, or whether this shouldn't be happening, which is our gut feeling that it's not okay. You reached out to Alf Duncan Auctioneers, which we assume has helped prompt these payments that have come through to the complainants. But you had some very interesting conversation with their general manager that you wanted to share.
Sure. Because
you didn't just send the 2 complainants, you also sent them several complaints of Hello Peter.
Yeah, echoing exactly the same kind of experience as Shanae and Mary. I don't have their contact details. They're obviously not available on Hello Peter, so I couldn't add them to my media query, but I shared these 2 cases, and obviously we know Shanae had threatened, and eventually she had got paid without any help from me, but Mary was still waiting for that 24,500 rand. So I raised all these concerns with them. I said we were doing the show as a general theme, and that these cases would be raised, and the response I got came yesterday from Alf Duncan Auctioneers General Manager. She gave her name just as Angie. She said, in the latter part of last year, we had unexpected changes to our admin and accounts divisions, which resulted in a backlog of paperwork and payments. Our admin and account staff have prioritized getting back on track, but it's taken longer than expected, as their responsibilities include other aspects of the day-to-day running of the business and auction preparation. None of these are justifications. And then came this. During COVID, our staff was...
Oh, come on.
Yes, our staff was significantly reduced, which meant that the staff that remained with the company were required to take on additional responsibilities and continue to do so.
No. COVID was 6 years ago now, Wendy. Are we really still using that as an excuse?
Some companies, yes, and I would definitely see that as a red flag. 6 years.
I mean, what next? Are they going to have a hantavirus outbreak wiping out their phone lines? I'm sorry. That is just, as you said, I mean, that is totally unacceptable.
And you continued. Regrettably, this has resulted in communication gaps, but again, this is being addressed, and we look forward to being able to communicate with clients in a timely fashion. And we don't just want communication, we want payment in connection with that. Mary has been paid, and proof of payment will be forwarded to her during the course of the day. Mary told me she didn't get proof of payment, but she did get her money, so all good. Our payment terms remain about 14 working days, excluding weekends and public holidays, after the sale has concluded. However, should a seller request that we pay all proceeds from various auctions over as one amount, we do accommodate them. Because I was just querying, it could be a strategy to sell most but not all on one auction, and then dribs and drabs, and then say, well, the 14 days starts at the end of the
final sale.
So that's not an acceptable tactic, just for the record. Unfortunately, not everything is always sold on the first auction, said Angie of Alf Duncan Auctioneers. Certainly not preferable. Nonetheless, it is the nature of the beast, and the goods do go on upcoming auctions. Any smaller amounts that arise on subsequent auctions are then tallied up and settled as one amount. I would say you would be within your rights to ask for payment if the bulk of your
items were sold.
Yeah. We're terribly sorry for the inconvenience and discomfort caused to Shanae and Mary. Our continued efforts at ensuring that our clients have pleasant experience with our auctions remain our priority.
Now, Wendy, before we talk about the industry body, several people asking the same thing. Who sits with the interest on all of these delayed payments?
Well, that's going to be talking about that right now.
Okay. So there is an industry body that keeps an eye on this kind of compliance issue.
There is. It's called the South African Institute of Auctioneers, SAIA. And I approached them with general advice for consumers when it comes to selling their goods via auction. The general manager, Sonia Steiger, told me that in recent months, which I wasn't asking specifically about any particular auctioneer, but she said they have been approached by several other clients who've also not been paid by Alf Duncan. Alf Duncan is not a member because of these outstanding issues.
Okay.
And she told me that she'd urged the company to pay them on their behalf. She sent me a list of 5 people last night, and I did go back to Andrew and say, do you intend to pay these people, and if so, when? But I've not had a response. And as I say,
so fair enough. That was only last night.
It was last night, but they did know we were going to air this afternoon.
Okay. Well, what we do have right now to give us more insight here is delighted to welcome on the line the chair of the SA Institute of Auctioneers, Nico Marie, who is with us. And Nico, thanks for your patience listening in to all that went before. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you very, very much, and good afternoon to you. I just want to correct you. I'm not the chair. I'm the vice chair.
Vice chair.
And
okay.
the head of compliance. So the chair
you're
is
our
Dr.
man.
Lennon, and, yeah.
Okay, important.
I'll do my best.
Thank you. We're very happy to have the head of compliance, exactly the right person that we needed. I believe you're a voluntary body, Nico. So not every auctioneer is obliged to belong to the institute, but do you have any sense of how many do? Is there a percentage you could put to it, or anything you'd like to say?
Well, the largest body of auctioneers fall under SAIA. You're 100% correct in saying that we're a voluntary professional body, and we represent, I would say, 80 to 85, maybe 90% of auctioneers in South Africa. And so we do represent the biggest part of the auctioneers in South Africa.
Okay. Now, as Wendy's already mentioned, Alf Duncan Auctioneers not a member at the moment. Is, as a matter of interest, Stefan Waltz, the other company that's been mentioned, are they members?
No, they aren't members either.
They aren't either. Okay.
No.
Now, that makes it difficult for you when, if a member is not playing by the rules, you can step in and advise and apply pressure, etc. But is there anything the Institute can do to have any sway at all over an auctioneer that's not a current member?
No, the problem is we can't. What we do is we gather the information and we use that going forward. If any of those members would want to become members, we can use that information going forward. But I'd like to just I was listening to Mary's story, and I'm very sorry to hear that these things happen, because they shouldn't happen, because we strongly condemn any conduct where auctioneers don't pay sellers on time. But I advocate, and I have been advocating for many years, that the main thing that you need to look at when it comes to consumers, sellers and buyers alike, is to make sure that your Regulation 22 mandate, and that's the first question I always ask, whether it's a SAIA auctioneer or not. Is there a mandate? What did the mandate say with regard to payments? What does it say? How quickly must it be paid? Interest shouldn't even be a question, because it should be paid over so quickly.
Yeah.
If you use an example, say you gave me your Maserati to sell. It's also a loose asset. Let's say I sell it for 3 million, and now I've got it in my trust account, and I'm dipping into the trust account, and I'm not misappropriating that money. It's not allowed. It has to be separated. So there's a trust account issue, and the other issue is it should be paid over in 3 or 4 days after payment is after you've deducted your costs, your commissions, and so forth. So that it shouldn't even happen in the least.
There should be no delay. So I believe that in common practice, though, payouts are made anything between 7 and 30 business days.
Look, it would depend on the size of the auction. It would depend on issues like whether it's subject to a bank loan or finance. But if it's normal, if you're talking about second-hand goods, antiques, and so forth, they're not normally subject to any finance deal. So it should be a question of where it's paid into a trust account, commissions deducted, costs deducted in terms of the mandate, and that written. Just to clarify something, no auctioneer in South Africa is allowed to sell a third party's goods without a written mandate where there are certain minimum requirements as set out in Regulation 22. And if the onus lies on the auctioneer to make sure that that mandate is in place. That's why financial institutions, liquidators, trustees, executives, and so forth prefer to use SIRE accredited auctioneers, because it's part of our code of conduct, it's part of our ethical rules, our professional standards, and the applicable auction legislation, which, in other words, the Consumer Protection Act or the Property Practitioners Act or the Second-Hand Goods Act and FICA and so forth.
There's a lot of regulation about it, and I know that the Consumer Protection Act's regulation has got like a whole semi-book relating to auctions. What a lot of people probably won't know is that the money has to be paid into a trust fund that the auctioneer has.
A trust account, correct.
A trust account. So a trust account, rather. And so no dipping into that. You mentioned it earlier. No dipping into that account. That is the client's
the act
money.
Is very specific on that. Yeah,
the
act is very specific.
Which is good to know. So advice to consumers, what to ask. First of all, find out if they're a SIRE member, and your website's very up to date. It's alphabetically listed, so you can just easily find if the name's not there, you've got your answer. And then if it is there, I would say ask questions about, well, first interrogate the mandate, and then ask specifically about the trust account, not so?
Correct. Well, in terms of the CPA, you have to have a trust account, and you have to keep it separate. Otherwise, you basically it's much of a muchness with regard to attorneys. It's trust money. You can't misappropriate that trust money. Yeah. And you have to keep it separate.
So there's no using it to pay the rent or staff or any other operating expense. So there should be no excuse for late payment, because that money should go straight into the trust account.
There should be no excuse at all.
That's really important for our listeners to understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nico, thank you so much. A final thing to ask you before we let you go is that the website, Wendy's mentioned, the starting point, if you want to check if somebody is a member of your institution, what is the website address?
I don't have that. I suppose it's fire. I don't have that with me.
I tell you what.
Just Google.
I will Google it in the ad break. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Nico. Thank you.
No problem at all. Nico Marie, I will Google it and make sure we've got the right address to give to listeners after the break. Nico is speaking to us there as the Vice Chair and Head of Compliance for the SA Institute of Auctioneers, and I'll come back. So, Wendy, very interesting to hear Nico's comment that the interest shouldn't even be a factor, because the money is meant to go from the sale straight into the trust account, deduct the commissions and fees, and straight to the seller.
Exactly.
But obviously, if it didn't happen, the question is, are you entitled to claim back the interest you've lost while that money was sitting in their account?
Yes, definitely. I didn't raise it with Alf Duncan Auctioneers, which I should have, but I know in the case of Stefan Waltz, Lawrence Friedman has confirmed, and so have the clients, that they do pay. They say, sorry, we will pay you interest, but
probably only if you ask for it.
Prodded enough, they have been known. I've had confirmation from cases I've taken up that they do pay the interest. So definitely something to ask for, absolutely, especially if you've waited months. I mean, one of our listeners
was
said
over a year. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so who was it? It was Corin, I think, who waited over a year. As a matter of interest, Corin, if you're still with us, did they pay you interest? Oh, sorry. Did they pay you interest on that very, very late payment that you had from Alf Duncan? And a reminder, Corin sold the items in November and December and only received of 2024. And only received payment in March this year.
Unless
so well over a year. No, she's come back to say the sale was November, December 2024. Payment was March 2026, so it was well over a year. I'd be interested to know whether you received any interest on that money that they sat with all that time, Corin. If you want to tell us, send through a follow-up WhatsApp. Nita saying, I'm listening with interest to your chat regarding Stefan Waltz. I dropped off some original British stamps at their office in Alphen Constantia in 2005 for sale by private treaty. Apparently, they're not highly catalogued and have no plate number, so they were difficult to dispose of. But the man who was supposed to return sent them to me has never done so. They had personal sentimental value, but I've not heard anything further, and I've given up on contacting them. So that's 21 years ago now. My goodness. I mean,
Probably
I'm so
entirely
sorry.
different staff, but
Yeah.
you need to push these things hard when they're
And
fresh.
not give up. Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, we've heard that now several times, the persistence it requires. And as you say, Wendy, while it is still current,
Yeah.
because in a case like that, I mean, Nita, I'm desperately sorry, but 21 years ago, as you say, it's probably an entirely new staff sitting there with no idea where those are.
Yeah.
The only thing one can hope for is that sometime, somewhere in an office clean out, somebody's going to find them, and hopefully
Her
your
contact
number is
details.
attached to them to return them to you. Josie also writing in to say, I repeatedly have had late payment from Stefan Weltz for jewellery that they sold for me. We had to threaten legal action and withhold funds that we owed them for items that I had bought from them on an online auction. That's an interesting strategy,
some
saying,
power
well, yeah,
there.
you pay me when I pay you kind of
Yeah.
thing. One hand scrubbing the other, as it were. Okay, happy to say we've had one positive. It's not about either of the auctioneers that we have been using, but it's not to tar the entire industry with the
Course
same
not.
brush. Irvan writes in, we've had excellent service from Strauss & Co., the art auctioneers. Contact about updates was timeless. Their settlement to me happened within days of my sale. And that is how it is meant
Supposed
to work.
To be. It's supposed to be a win for
yeah.
everybody.
So thank
The
you
buyer,
so
the
much.
seller, and of course the auction gets a cut from buyer and seller, and
Yeah.
and that it should work perfectly.
So it's good to know that it is at least happening in some cases. We do have to wrap there. Wendy, thank you so much for making our listeners aware of this issue and aware of the need to push back if they are receiving the runaround on payments due after auction. And you've heard it from the Institute. Do not accept those excuses. They absolutely know, and that money is meant to be in a trust account and available to pay you absolutely
Immediately.
timelessly. So that is the bottom line. Wendy Knowler, we'll chat again next week, Wednesday.